Pastor, doesn't science disprove the Bible?
Isn't Genesis just a fairy tale?
Is God for real? Did he really create everything in 6 literal days?
Didn't God just use the Big Bang?
Why is there death and suffering? Do you really believe the Bible?
Didn't man evolve from apes?
For answers to these questions and more, stand by for Believing the Bible.
Welcome to Believing the Bible. This is Scott Lane with Ed Salzadell and Dr. Carl Williams, all directors at the San Antonio Bible-Based Science Association. We are here to reassure you can believe the Bible from the very first verse. Today we're going to talk about the topic of biblical archaeology. Now, this is a field which apologists are very interested in, but which the secularists say is a total joke. I think that is being extremely unkind and extremely unfair to the people who are devoted to biblical archaeology. In point of fact, it's a very rapidly expanding field because right now they are finding almost daily new find in Israel called the City of David, which is just fascinating, the things that are coming out of that each day. Carl, you suggested this topic. What was your interest in looking into this?
Well, to say that we believe the Bible from the very first verse, we should be able to find some evidence physically in historical records or in archaeological ruins that would support the passages of the Bible, the accounts of the Bible. Was there truly a Tower of Babel? Was there truly Jericho that the walls fell down? Was there truly a King David? All these questions add to the veracity of the Bible. So if we can't find evidences of those things, then one has to maybe reconsider the truthfulness of the Bible.
Well, let's look into some of the things that have been found. But truthfully, we can't contain into this program, but we can hit some of them. You mentioned Jericho. We have found the ruins of Jericho. We found that the wall of Jericho was fallen out. This couldn't have been done by just some grappling hooks because the wall itself was over 30 feet thick with houses embedded on top of it. So the fact that we found it, that it is a real place, that it appears that what was described in the Bible actually occurred, gives credence to that account. There is a piece of written material on a rock block called the Ebla, which was a Babylonian and Syrian writing, talks about Sodom and Gomorrah and life in Ur. See, every time we find one of these pieces, what it does is give substantiation to the Bible. Now, what's unfair is that the people who don't want to trust the Bible say that it cannot be trusted on itself. That's what we do for any other document that we find in history, is unless we find a counter-indicting document, that we give it credence until such time as it's disproved. People do the opposite with the Bible. In addition, the Ebla found mention of Abraham and others. Abraham's city of Ur was excavated by Sir Leonard Woolley. So that's another find. Quran. In Jewish writings, especially those of Josephus, they verify the existence of Christ and other biblical characters. In fact, a lot of people do not know that we have this type of archaeological evidence supporting the existence of 105 biblical characters. It's not just a bunch of myth that's been put down. Sodom and Gomorrah, those sites have both been discovered. They're on the Jordanian shore of the Dead Sea. Bab Edra is the Arabic for Sodom, and Numera is the Arabic for Gomorrah. They found all 5 cities of the plain that were described in Genesis 14:8. All 5 are on a Dead Sea rift, a plate boundary. It appears that at God's command, the rift ruptured and a pyroclastic blast went across the whole valley. Now, unlike a normal volcano, this did not come out of one area, but out of the whole rift, and it destroyed the whole area. Sodom was sitting on the fault, and it fell 100 meters into the fault line. The skeptics say that there never was a King Sargon, because even though he's mentioned in the Bible in Isaiah chapter 20 verse 1, because they couldn't find outside substantiation for him up through the 18th century, they said, well, he never existed. But his palace has been recovered at Korsbad, thus substantiating the Bible. If you went to Sunday school, you heard about a King Nebuchadnezzar.
Yes.
What did y'all ever hear about King Nebuchadnezzar?
Well, we talked about his giant statue of gold.
Right.
He made everyone bow to and worship.
Well, there's two pieces that we're going to talk about that we found in archaeology, not only to substantiate that he existed, but also we found an obelisk that shows that exact story, that he did build that type of thing and that he went crazy for a period of time and then came to know God. All of which is in the Bible, but is also substantiated in secular records. We are listening to Believing the Bible. This is Scott Lane with Ed Salzadell and Carl Williams. If you would like to learn more, go to sabsa.org. That is sabbsa.org. Today we're talking about what's in the biblical archaeology, what can actually be found to substantiate what's going on. One of my favorites in this field is following the Table of Nations in Genesis 10. Genesis 10 details how man spread out after Babel, how the grandsons and great-grandsons of Noah spread out across the earth. And what we find is not only does the Bible describe this in Genesis 10, but the local records substantiate it. Hindustan is a grandson that went to India, and the local records verify that out. Javan went to Greece, and the local records verify that out. Cush went to the area of Ethiopia, and the Ethiopians today still call themselves what?
Cushites.
Cushites. Mizraim went to Egypt, which was the ancient name for Egypt. Gomer went into the Urals, Northern Europe, and England, and records from all three of those areas show that Gomer was the first person in that area. We're talking secular records that support the Bible.
Then he went to Mayberry?
Not that, man, that guy is always disturbing. At any rate, one of the ones that skeptics like to pick on is Quirinius. Now, who was Quirinius?
The governor that called for the census to be taken.
Yeah.
That was in Luke.
Governor of Syria. Now, a favorite in the 1800s to discredit the Bible, especially that of Sir William Ramsay and others, was that Luke says that Quirinius was the governor of Syria when Jesus was born. Research of extra-biblical sources in the Bible, we know the standard calendar is off. Christ was actually born somewhere between 2 and 7 BC, not in 1 AD. But a 19th century secular record shows Quirinius was made governor after 6 AD. So the higher criticism for years was that the Bible's not inerrant. It says that Christ was born as a result of going to Bethlehem and this census, but the guy wasn't even the governor then. But in 1912, an ancient inscription dated to have been written around 10 BC was found saying that Quirinius was governor of Syria and Cilicia. Apparently, Quirinius ruled in Syria during two different periods of time, which we have. We have governors which get elected, go out of office, and then come back into office. And so that appears to be what occurred here. But again, the Bible is substantiated here with what we find, and this allays one of the critics. One of my more fascinating things that the critics will say is that Moses couldn't even write. Therefore, he couldn't have written the 5 books of the Pentateuch. What are y'all's thoughts when you hear that Moses couldn't even write?
I think somebody's out to lunch, because Moses basically was brought up in the palace. And when you wind up bringing this individual up in the palace, he was probably taught with the highest level and the most amount of education that was available. And he probably was promoted to what we'd be looking at maybe as a 4 or 5 star general. So he was a commander. He knew how to fight. He knew how to organize. He was more than brilliant, probably, to say the least.
You have hit on one of the 3 reasons why that we can substantiate that Moses wrote. Number 1, he was a prince of Egypt. And if they could write, he could write. He would have been taught that. Second, the whole idea that they couldn't write is this idea that we're all coming up from cavemen and that there was nothing but primitive society. Egyptian culture was nothing but primitive. It was very different, very high, very complex in what it was doing. But the third thing is when you take a look at what he wrote, it contains many references to Egyptian names, places, people, gods, as well as Egyptian words, idioms, and cultural facts. He demonstrated an outsider's view of Canaan, of the perspective of Egypt or Sinai. Folks, when we take a look at this from a literal point of view, it is absolutely ludicrous that anyone would charge that this guy could not write, and yet they try to do just that. We have the Hammurabi Black Stela, discovered in 1901 at the Acropolis in the ancient city Susa. It shows the Code of Hammurabi on a stone slab. The code contains nearly 4,000 lines of text and about 282 laws. Now, Hammurabi was the king of Babylon around 2000 BC, which makes him a contemporary of Abraham, the first Hebrew. An original document from the time of Abraham. What this shows is Hammurabi is identified as Amraphel, who's mentioned in Genesis 14, one of the kings who captured Abraham's nephew Lot, if you'll remember the story. One of the most important discoveries in biblical archaeology because it ties it to that time frame and ties it to true events within the Bible. Another example, the Ismailia Stela is a 26th century sandstone slab with hieroglyphics dedicated to Pharaoh. Now, I can't even say the word Wahibri Habri, but biblically, this is Hophra, who reigned from 589 to 570 BC. Jeremiah 44:30 talks about Hophra's demise, prophesies and detailed Jerusalem and Zedekiah's fall. Earlier, Jeremiah 37:5 through 8 had talked about Hophra's army stopped the Babylonian siege of Jerusalem prior to 587 BC, and this stuff about Hophra and about this king were verified in the writings not only of the Bible, but Manetho, Herodotus, and Siculus. Folks, I could go on. The point is, there is multiple archaeological evidences that have been found to support the biblical account. What are y'all's thoughts when you hear all this?
Well, I think that it's great that we have this information. We have investigators who are willing to put the time in, because I know I would not be one to go out to Israel and dig up stuff from the past. Wouldn't be able to make sense of it, nor would I tolerate the digging. But I'm so happy that we have people who do this sort of thing, this sort of work, and have the integrity to research it diligently, to essentially cross-reference with other archaeologists and come up with the information that you just discussed.
And folks, that is just one more reason why we believe the Bible from the very first verse. We recommend that you check out Terry Reed's book on his website at Why Should You Believe. You can get access to a whole range of Dr. Carl Williams' books on Christian historical fiction on Amazon.com. And we also recommend Scott Lane's new book, What If God Wrote the Bible, which is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and everywhere else. For more information or to schedule a presentation, go to sabsa.org. That is sabbsa.org, or call 210-599-7240. We will bring the presentation of your choice to your organization at a surprisingly low cost. When you go to our website, you can click on a link to our newsletters. Our website also has a link for contact information and on which you can order our newsletter or contact us for more information. While on the website, check out the YouTube videos at the bottom of the homepage, as well as our links page connecting you to the best in creation websites around the world. Also, topics for future radio shows can be found on our calendar page. It costs hundreds of dollars to broadcast this show across the country. If you would like to help in this ministry, go to the contact page on our website and find the post office box where you can send donations. You may also want to visit whyshouldyoubelieve.com. That is Terry's website containing articles looking at current day issues from a biblical perspective. If you missed any part of this show, you can listen to this show anytime by going to our website homepage and clicking on Believing the Bible, SABSA on KSLR link. Please join us again next time for Believing the Bible. I'm Scott Lane, and for Terry Reed and Dr. Carl Williams, thanks for listening, and we hope you found today a reason to believe the Bible.